Hello and welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. I'm your host, Francie, and today I'm joined again by Jordan, who I just love having on the podcast. So thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure. How's it going, Francie?
Pretty well. I've had an eventful past couple of days, a bit of a road trip, a bit of flying. How have you been doing? I know you've been on the road.
Also road tripping, not so much flying, but definitely road tripping. So I think we've both been in that EV road trip mentality lately, and I'm extremely intrigued to hear about yours.
Yeah, I'm also happy to tell you in person. I feel like it's really fun to do the podcast.
Yes, 100%.
Sitting in the same room together rather than, although it's totally fine to do it virtually. It's just, you bring your energy and I love it.
Exactly.
But actually, yeah, speaking of doing things alone or not, I did a road trip alone in Kyle's R1T. So that's the Rivian truck, all the way from Chattanooga, Tennessee, up to Cleveland, Ohio. And this actually wasn't my first road trip in the Rivian. About a year ago, Kyle let me borrow it when we kind of first met last year. It was really nice. I said, I'm driving out from Colorado to Denver to, the westernmost part of Nevada in Reno, Lake Tahoe area, and I was gonna just take a nice ice car, and Kyle said wait
a second,
what if you borrowed that Rivian of mine? And really got the chance to see what that was like going through Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. So that was really fun and really interesting. But of course I want to talk about today's road trip because I've learned a lot since then. But it was I think it was really cool to see the infrastructure. I actually had a really great road trip, I'd say. And I think partly was because of the infrastructure that was in place, also the EV that I was driving and everything. And of course, I think an EV road trip for someone who's just trying to get from point A to B at this point in time could be really frustrating. But for me, I see it as more of an experiment, an experience. Yeah. And a learning thing that, when I do feel frustration, I'm like, this is noted. This isn't going to ruin my day, but it is noted along the way.
I'm excited to get into this because one of my worst road trips of my life was also in Kyle's Rivian. So we've each road trip Kyle's Rivian solo. We had opposite experiences, but I'm not going to paint that as an EV road tripping thing because I actually love EV road trips. Mm-hmm. I love stopping and charging, having a longer break. Mm-hmm. If I'm in a gas car, it's like, okay, fuel up, get in, get out, keep going.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm on this like mission thing. Whereas if I'm in an electric car, I feel more refreshed when I get to my destination because I was forced to stop, forced to take a break. And I like, maybe it's the ADD or whatever. I like working in short, extensive, like intensive bursts. And so if I'm stopping to charge, I'll get out my computer, work, edit, like do whatever. And this is like little spurts of like productivity.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a positive spin on it in a way too. But I do think it's true. And I felt that way, especially when I road trip with my dog, which I did when I first took the Rivian, which was ideal for him. Like he doesn't want to stay in the car the whole time. So we would get out, stretch our legs, get our eyes moving from just staying straight on the road and kind of like take our mind away from just driving straight. So I do really like that. On the flip side of it, sometimes if you're left waiting, I feel like some of my energy is used during those stops that could be put towards the drive, especially when I'm low energy, which I was for this trip. So it's kind of like, it definitely depends, but I think there is pros and cons to it for sure. Longer stops, I think in general, it's nicer to stop and smell the roses, but sometimes you just need to get to where you're going.
Yeah, and it sounds like in this case, you left a little bit later, which means you didn't get to where you were going until a little bit later.
Yeah, so...
Which was the same as my experience.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Curious to hear about yours.
Yeah, so first off to explain like why I was in Chattanooga, because why was the Rivian in Chattanooga anyways? So Kyle, ever since he got the Rivian, wanted to get it wrapped. So he had the white R1T with the green interior, and Test Bros, who are based out of Chattanooga, they mostly wrap Teslas. So they actually decided to say, hey, Kyle, why don't we take the Rivian, give it a go with a unique design, customized design wrap on it. So we dropped it off there when Kyle came through to the Southeast three weeks ago now, maybe, when we went out to South Carolina to BMW, and then we also went to Mercedes in Atlanta, and then we flew out to the LA Auto Show. So when that happened, it was left in Chattanooga to get wrapped. Me being the Southeasterner of the crew decided, or got assigned to get the Rivian from Chattanooga and drive it up to Cleveland, Ohio for the CharIN event, the Testival, where a bunch of hardware companies in the EV space, the charging space, get together and test like interoperability and charging and whatever they have that they're going to basically like put out in public, and also like just collaborate in the space. So that's the whole frame of the trip. So getting to Chattanooga, you can check out the wrap video too on the Out of Spec Reviews channel and see like how they did it. And their business is like pretty huge and growing and multifaceted. And G and the team over there are really impressive. So I will state that. So started out in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and from there, I had a really great time hitting 3 EVgo Pilot Fying J stations in a row. So the first I had to start at the Chattanooga airport because they lost my bag. I had to go back before the trip started. So it really did start late. Not only did I go get the Rivian, make the video for the wrap, but then I had to go back and get my bag from the airport. So I drove about like 84 miles. I wrote down to outside of Knoxville, and that's where Pilot Fying J is headquartered. So I went to the one that if you look them up, these stations up, this is the one that you see. Big pull-through station, giant canopy, clearly Ultium, that GM Ultium charging and Pilot Fying J branding, blue lights, just really lit up and easy. And I was like, oh my God, this is the one that I've been seeing online. Great experience. So everything charged right. I thought the pull-through style was great. The fact that it was right off the highway and a truck stop was I think this is going to be something that has to be incorporated into the infrastructure, because getting off the highway and having to go into a town that you don't know is just so annoying. And you don't have to do that when you're gassing up your car. So I hit 3 of those in a row, which was really great as I went along. And I had success each time. So they did change. Not all of them are pull through. So only the first one I went to was a big pull through canopy station. I think that's because outside of Knoxville, the headquarters, perhaps. The other ones were to the side of kind of the truck stop. They weren't pull through. They were still well lit, and just 2 chargers at all stations that I saw. So yeah, so 4 stalls. So that's what I was seeing. Have you been to any of those yet?
I have not. I kind of want to go.
Yeah.
Seems more intriguing than some of the Electrify America options.
Yeah, definitely.
And did they all just work?
They all worked.
Wow.
I only had one issue. I know. Well, one issue with the card tap, or I tried to use Apple Pay tap, but once I inserted my credit card, it worked.
Okay.
But no like charging session like randomly stopped or anything. So that was amazing. It was just that one, and I'm going to reach out to EVgo and let them know exactly which station that was. But yeah, absolutely no issues. Unfortunately, no one was charging with me, so I didn't get to talk to any other folks along the way. But yeah, it was really, really great. So I was pleasantly, not even surprised, I was just like pleasantly experiencing charging at these Pilot Fying J stations. But then I traveled a bit further, and it was dark by now, and no more EVgo Pilot Fying J stations to be found as I went north. So I went out of Tennessee into Kentucky, and then I would travel up through Kentucky into Ohio. But I went, up to an EA station in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I had to...
That's 2 red flags in that sentence.
And it was dark, and so I was like, I went from the canopies that were all lit up and great to, I'm getting off the highway. I'm getting off the highway by a couple miles or a few miles.
Yeah,
or
it's
4
not just
miles.
right on the highway.
Not right on the highway. And it's nighttime now, into a shopping center that is all closed, to an EA station that is not lit whatsoever.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, great. And I did talk to other people, once we got to CharIN, they were like, there's ABB, EVgo, Pionix, all these people here that are in the charging industry. And I mentioned my experience because I'm a woman driving alone, right? Lighting and safety when you're plugged in a sitting duck for a while is really important. So I felt that, one, it wasn't just inconveniently located off the highway, and otherwise it was fine. I mean, the charging speeds are lower than EVgo, so it's like whatever, 150 instead of 350. But the lighting and the amenities really, it was a stark contrast going from EVgo to EA. And I was just kind of like, man, this is really putting it into perspective. And this is no one's going to want a road trip if this is how it is.
And you and Kyle had just spent time in the Rolls-Royce Spectre.
Oh,
Imagine that's your charging stop on its route guidance. Please go to this sketchy EA in your $600,000 car.
Yeah. It's like, no way. Okay, I'm never going to road trip this thing. So I think, just seeing that. Otherwise, the charging session was fine. It was successful. And I wasn't expecting to have a poor experience with EA.
Yeah.
So, but it was just like, okay. It points to just me that we have to emulate what already exists, the truck stops, which I think the charging infrastructure was like, we're not going to be like gas stations in the beginning.
They're trying to reinvent the stupid wheel when they don't need to.
When gas stations have been doing this and trial and error to create a relatively perfect system, right? I mean, it's right off the highway in terms of truck stops.
And even if it's not perfect, like it is annoying that it like when you're road tripping through Kansas, which I've done 40 something times now. It's obnoxious how most gas stations are just like feeling a bit run down, but it's like that's kind of each individual gas station's fault. There's some nice ones too, so it's not like they're not perfect, but the system is perfect. Like it's just there. It's so rare when you have a gas station not work, or if it doesn't, they're really good about putting like a bag over the thing saying it doesn't work.
You're not even pulling up to it.
Yep.
You're seeing that yellow badge. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's just not always the case with the. I mean, CCS specifically, but even actually, believe it or not, yesterday I had a charging issue with a Tesla supercharger.
Oh my God.
But it was just the actual pins for the NACS connector were, one of them was broken. And someone had left it on the ground, which is the sign that, hey, this doesn't work. But that's the first time I've ever seen that, which is crazy.
Because I've seen charging cables on the ground, but not because they're broken, but because
wind.
Yeah, or people. Yeah, I think wind
or people. Yeah.
And as things get cold, so I'll speak to my experience a little bit. So it got colder a little bit more. I got colder as I went more north, and charging, I mean, I'm a relatively short person, and so I was trying to film some of my charging, and I literally couldn't do it one-handed.
Yeah, you're filming these giant CCS cables with one hand.
Yes.
And
I literally could not.
Yeah.
I had to put it down, and as it gets colder, they get more firm, so you can't manipulate it as well. So I definitely had some. If someone was smaller, not as strong, didn't have, the same capabilities as I do, like,
my mom would not be able to do this.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. So that was one thing. So charging was overall okay. I did stop, mostly like 80 miles between stations, which is as I made it from Chattanooga to Cleveland, Ohio, which we were talking about isn't great. But I also was, in terms of the Rivian was like, okay, well, you're going to have to charge here if you're going to make it to that destination. So I was like, can I trust what the Rivian is telling me? That was my first thought, was, can I trust this navigation system? So I was like, well, lean into it, see if you can. And I did, what it told me. And it does kind of point to that there's not enough consistent infrastructure, of course, which is no surprise that I have to make more frequent stops.
Yeah. So what was the mileage in between stops?
Mostly, as I'm looking at my notes now, 84 miles between the first two stops, then 83, then 118, then 80, and then 86. And then finally 130 from the final EVgo Kroger station that I went to the hotel where I got there at a really low state of charge, and the charger there, the J1778, is that right?
1772.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Wasn't working.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. And so I wonder how much of that is attributing to cold weather, because range is drastically affected by cold weather. I mean, drastically. There's a recent test actually came out with like Volkswagen ID4s can suffer as much as 40-something% range cut in cold weather. Which feels a bit ironic because me and Tom Malogny went to the factory in Chattanooga and saw their like cold battery testing facility, and then we're like, "That's so cool! I bet that's some really cool results."
Yeah,
I guess.
But what do they do with their results?
Not, yeah,
maybe, yes, it decreases range.
Maybe not much, but
yeah, it was definitely colder along the way, and that's also the charging experience too. When you get out and it's cold and you have to wait in your car for a long period of time, it's nicer to have a truck stop to go into.
Yep,
with an attendant.
And were these charging stops the consecutive stops? Like that's the challenge, is like you could have gone further. The truck has a longer range, but what are the chances of finding charging stops at the exact increment of the range of your vehicle?
Exactly. That's what the problem was. Yeah, because as the Rivian will show you, you're at point A, you want to go to point B, it'll show you along the way where you will run out. So then it'll find chargers along the way and say, you're going to need to charge here. It'll even say, you'll need to charge here for 19 minutes based on the information that it has on your state of charge when you're going to get their estimated state of charge. And then also what the charger apparently there is capable of. And it does have that dynamic data of what's available and what's not. Although with the Electrify America, it didn't show me availability. I would have to go on PlugShare to see if the chargers were available.
Maddening.
So that dynamic data wasn't there for them, but it was for EVgo.
Nice.
Yeah.
Props to EVgo.
Props to EVgo, I guess. I mean, or it does. I mean, I would think that Rivian would try to get that dynamic data from EA. But yeah, also what I loved about the Rivian, I thought it was comfortable. It's a big truck, but it doesn't feel giant and clumsy. It has the highway assist, so it'll drive you down the highway. It'll keep you lane centered. It'll do that adaptive speed and The one thing that I don't like is that when you're passing a semi, it doesn't hug the opposite line enough for me to be comfortable. That's really my only complaint, though. Otherwise, great sound system.
Yeah, Meridian
comfortable
sound
drive.
system. It's such a good truck. And I've thought that since day one. And it has great air suspension, like a nice wafty highway ride. And it just handles super well. It's a beast on the trails. It's stupid fast. We've done, a whole video on drag racing Rivian against everything. And the road trips is where I've really seen it shine. Even though I had a very frustrating experience overall, that was mostly the drive out to Vegas was phenomenal. The drive back was the real problem.
Was the blizzard.
And that was the blizzard. So it's not even always all the truck's fault, although literally half the chargers didn't work. And that's not like exaggeration. I counted like every single time I stopped. Thank goodness at least one charger at each stop worked. But like you're stopping, there's 4 stalls, 2 of them are broken. And the 2 of them that are there are being hogged by in my case, a Bolt that was charging to 100%. And so that's just a challenging experience. But the road trip ability itself, phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it really is. It was, it would precondition the battery. It would really I think they've worked on their software so much, and we've seen that. Yeah. And even just the visibility of what they'll show you behind the scenes, the different settings that you can put into place to be a more efficient driver, which is again a learning curve that people have to learn of their EV. Like what actually agency do I have on how my car is going to perform in terms of the EV performance? So I think a little like Rivian 101 or EV 101 would be helpful for everyone. But yeah, I would say it was an overall great, good experience. I was tired though. It was longer than I think a normal road trip a nice road trip would be. And that was a bit tough. This is the new normal. It will be for more and more people, but it was a good experience to see it along that way. I wish I could have hit some magic dock stations, but when I looked on the map, absolutely none along that route or anywhere. So excited to see more and more of those along the way, to try those out, to see, what those will be like. Some of them are, built along truck stops with that kind of amenity, but sometimes they're not. Yep. So we'll have to see on what that kind of location plays in. But just some stats as well. This trip was roughly 591 miles. What I paid for charging was between $20 and $40 a session, depending on how much, I was getting. And then I think that totaled about around $166 from Chattanooga to Cleveland. But it was about 20 minutes on average at each charge, 20 to 30 minutes.
So that checks out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'd love to do like side-by-side ICE EV road trips to compare how long you stop and also the experience that comes along the way. Like if you're running in and out of your car, whatever, like sometimes you just go in to grab a snack and use the restroom and then get back in your car, or just gas up and go. Yeah. But yeah, how long the stops are compared, because it is nice to stop and smell the roses.
I'd love to see a Rivian van kitted out for van life. I'm not particularly a van lifer, but I live near Boulder, Colorado, which is like one of the van capitals, and I could see van life. Yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. The R1S to me, I've been recently intrigued by car camping. I tried camping in our R1T and the bed, which, fun fact, fits a 4x8 tent perfectly, like basically a 2-person tent. Okay. But I've also slept in the cab. Don't recommend that.
I did actually nap in the back seat at one stop, but I'm smaller than you.
Well, yeah, I was sleeping in the cab with 3 other guys.
What? No. Okay. Never
Some people
mind.
complain about their college dorm experience. Yeah. No.
Oh my God, that's brave.
But I'm glad to hear it was actually a good road trip experience.
Yeah.
Because you kind of had the time against you. Like you got in late, which would typically mar your experience.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the way getting there was just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little bit of an optimist here, but I think what would obviously improve it was better efficiency on the Rivian, like better range, better efficiency in cold, better efficiency on the highway, more chargers in between, so that no matter where I wanted to stop, there would be a charger. Just like no matter where you want to stop, there's going to be a gas station. And I think in general, that's really it. Me not being as tired would have been cool, but that's my control.
That's your fault. Yeah.
That's my own
It's a personal problem.
But I had to get to CharIN, and had to see some of y'all who are listening in. Thank you so much. Who I got to meet and, see y'all and see what's going on with the hardware side of things, which is really cool. And, yeah, I mean, Cleveland was cool too. So I get to, with road trips, I love it. You get to see parts of the world that you wouldn't otherwise. You get to see sunrises and sunsets and how the seasons change as you cross state lines. So overall enjoyable, challenging. Yes, obviously. I think more, every time we take a road trip, that's what it's going to reflect. But over here, I was on a CCS road trip and you were on a NACS road trip.
Yep.
So, I mean, do you think that we're having drastically different experiences?
Sort of. Like on one hand, we're both enjoying the road trip, which is the most important thing, I think. But my road trip is really highlighted. There are so many Tesla superchargers, and I'm not even on like huge routes. I mean, mostly big ones, but even like the non-main highways that I've gone off on, like some of the north-south ones, like between St. Louis and Nashville, and even coming out here, it's just like really, I don't know. There's so many chargers, and I'm using Kyle's old Model 3 with almost 150,000 miles, a lot of battery degradation. It is almost winter, and I'm still never having to think about charging. Like it's just everywhere. And it's crazy how many superchargers I'm skipping. Even on this car with such low range, I'm driving past superchargers because I'm like, I don't need that one. So, and even, getting out to, I went from Colorado to Missouri, and this can be a whole other podcast on that road trip, but there's like almost like 2 different Tesla routes within the same route. Like I hopped to V3 superchargers. I could have done nothing but V2 superchargers, all on this car that's, getting me maybe 100 miles between charges. So that's just how many charging stops there are.
So convenient. That's why I wish there were magic docks along the way, because I probably would have had a lot more options, right? That's really going to open it up for CCS road trips, which is really, really cool. So I think in combination with the magic docks and the Pilot Fying J, I mean, I want us, like, there weren't any flaws with my experience at EVgo stations there, which I think is really, really cool. So I would love to know more about the firmware that they're using, because it's really successful, and I wonder if it is distinct from what is on the EVgo network in general. And then how maybe it'd be cool to know how EVgo is learning about the Pilot Fying J stations and incorporating that into like their next plans, just as the EVgo stations, or if there's going to be other travel centers pairing up with charging companies, whether it's EVgo or whoever. I think just it's a really good model to follow from my brief experience with 3 in the row and then EA in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Well, is there anything you would change next time, or is it all the things that are kind of outside your control and just hope for a better situation?
No, I think, make sure I love to travel with, even if it's just my dog, another living creature. I'd add that on. I think some things are out of my control, the range of the electric, but I'm learning more and more about the efficiency that I can work with the vehicle. So, I mean, of course, if you're using different EVs, you can learn the different systems that they have. But yeah, studying up before I get in, so I know like, oh, well, if I have to stretch it, like I'll make sure to go into like this height or this. I mean, conserve mode is obvious, but other things like that, so that I can be the most efficient driver, which is good. I think that's a good thing to learn, but that's a skill set that drivers don't necessarily need to have, hopefully, to just have a successful road trip.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm just learning more and more what it's like to road trip, so that I can then have more and more like conversations with people, especially as the holidays come along and we're around family and everyone's talking about EVs and renewable energy and all that stuff, that you can have like facts and figures to point to. Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about your road trip soon, but EV road tripping, it's possible. It can be fun. Yeah.
It's
cool
easy.
to learn.
Yeah. I'm all here for it.
Well, thanks for tuning into the Out of Spec podcast to hear about my R1T road trip from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Cleveland, Ohio. We'll have some CharIN content too about people that we've spoken to. So tune in on the podcast, and hopefully we'll talk about your road trip too, as you've been traveling around the country in a bit of a lasso shape.
Always love it.
Always love it.
Yep.
So we will see you next time on the Out of Spec podcast. Hope you have a great day.
Cheers.